This is a story called Mice Mouth, The Boy Blessed by the Mice, told by Alfred Morsette Sr. The Arikaras, like surrounding tribes, saw the mouse as a potential source of power, particularly the ability to slip furtively and quickly into and out of difficult situations. A historical observer of this attitude towards mice was the fur trader Henry A. Baller, who recounted that in 1858, zoo visitors at Fort Berthold were so troubled by the many mice running over them at night, they got up, lit their pipes, and declared they could not sleep because the mice were great spirits. The following story tells of a young man rewarded with their power after he saves a mouse couple's children. Like many such legends, this one is also a narrative about the abuse of power. The recipient uses it for evil, and the people are ultimately driven to put him to death. They used to call this river the Heart River. That is where the villages once were when our people were migrating this way from down below in the south, they used to say. Now it is not known how long they lived here after coming to its banks, but they stayed a long time. Then there was no deer in the vicinity of the villages after they became scarce because of so many boys going around hunting. Well, then the chiefs, the ones who made the rules, said, "Surely it's a difficult time here. Let's move further on to where the game is. Let's go there." It was some time in the spring when the weather usually gets warm. Then the people moved off. When they were migrating closer up this way, they came up onto the top of a ridge. Now one young man had remained behind in the village where he was going around among the lodges. "Later I'll go to where my people have gone," he said. While he was going around, he heard a woman crying inside an earth lodge. A woman was crying. This young man went there. Then he entered the lodge, and there sat a woman crying. And then the young man said, "Ah, what's the matter? Did they leave you behind? What happened that they left you?" Then the woman said, "No, they didn't leave me behind, but they took my children who are with the group that is gone. They took mine. They are the ones I am crying for. Now is it possible for you to bring my children back?" Then this one said, "I'll go. I'll do it. If it isn't too difficult, I'll do it." Then the woman said, "Fine. The men who are in the lead have a white buffalo robe, and in it are my children. Now is it possible for you to bring my children back?" Then this one said, "I'll go. It's difficult, but I'll do it if they're willing to unfold the white buffalo robe. Inside it is where the medicines are kept. That must have been how they kept their medicine long, long ago. I'll return if it isn't too difficult for me," he said. And then this young man came after him. He came up onto the hills there. Then the people were on top of one in the distance. Then he arrived where they were. They had turned the horses loose to graze. It's far where we are going, and the horses need food and rest. Now this young man arrived there. Then he said, "You chiefs are sitting here. I want you to unfold that robe. I want to see it. I want to pray to the medicines in it. Yes, now do that." Then that is what he did. Then he untied it. There were 4 mice. There were 4 mice lying there in it. Then he furtively took them up and put them under the robe he wore. Now he retied the medicine robe. Then he quickly left the group and went back to where he had been. He vanished all at once. Before long, he came quickly into the deserted village, and then he went to the lodge where the woman had been inside. Then he entered, and there she sat. Also there sat a man. There were now 2 inside the lodge. "Now here they are. Are they the ones?" Then she said, "Yes, they are the ones. Oh, now we are thankful to you. This is the one who is my husband. These are our children." Now those 2 talked to the young man. "Now the ways of the warpath are not going to be difficult for you, nor will whatever you want, no matter what it may be, you aren't going to have it hard." Now the other one, the man jumped up. He just flew against the young man on one side. On the young man's cheek, there was now an image of a mouse. The other one, The woman did the same thing on his other cheek. Now we are thankful to you. You aren't going to have it difficult. Whatever you want, you'll find it. And you'll take it and you'll have it. And when somebody talks about you, you're going to hear it. You will know. Well, then the young man came after them. Then he caught up with the people as they were moving on. And wherever it was, they camped there. And the ways of the warpath, horse stealing and striking the enemy, were not hard for him. His relatives were proud of him. Perhaps he married. They never mentioned that matter. Well, then he began to do bad things. He was a bad person when he was stealing the wives of other people. After some man would marry a woman, he would steal her. Then he would elope with her. Then as he was doing these things, people began to dislike him. And whenever a baby would cry, its mother would say, "Stop crying, Mice Mouth will come." When Mice Mouth discovered it, he would snatch the baby and bash its head on the ground. He killed it, just like he was killing many of them. His actions were evil. Now there was one man who was violent. He was strong. He was confident in his strength. Then one day he said, "I've just been hoping that Mice Mouth and I might encounter one another and that I could work him over." That is what the man was saying. That man went off somewhere one time. Then he began trapping. Now they used to dig a pit. It would be a deep pit in a trail habitually traveled by deer. This pit was covered so that the trap could not be seen. And then when a deer passed over it, it would fall into the pit, and then it would die after it was trapped inside. Now sometimes too, a coyote or some other animal would fall into it and be killed. That is what this man was doing. Then he began digging a pit. While he was busy doing it, he looked up, and there was standing above him was the man called Mice Mouth. He had an antelope skin cap over his head. Then the man in the pit said, "Ah, you're the one I've been looking for. It's certainly good that you found me here." Then the man got out. "Your actions, the things you are doing are bad. You've hurt the feelings of so many people in this village of our tribe. Now we are going to fight." Then Mice Mouth said, "If it has to be that way, let it be. If you want it that way, we'll fight." And then this man put his bow and arrows down. The other one put his bow and arrows down too. Now they fought there, each struggling with each other. Now when this man who had been trapping was pushed backward, he kicked Mice Mouth's bow and arrows away so that he could not snatch them up. And it was the same way with the other one. When Mice Mouth was pushed back, he did the same thing, kicking the man's bow and arrows away. But after they had been struggling with one another for a while, they calmed down. Now neither one of them was beaten. This man after Mice Mouth caused his eyes to swell. He was barely able to see. Then he went off. Then he went back toward the village. As he was going along, he called out for someone to help him. People came for him. "What's the matter?" they said. Then he said, "Mice Mouth and I found each other. He must be strong as I am." Then they took him into the village. Now this Mice Mouth was tough. No one was able to do anything with him. Whenever they talked about him, why, he would hear it. "Now we'll spy on him, we'll kill him." Why, he would know it. Now a group prepared to go on a warpath. "Let's go on the warpath," they said. Then they set out. There were many of them. Now they always had corn balls made of ground corn flour. Oh, that is what the man Mice Mouth liked. Ground corn flour. They had it. As they were going along, they saw Mice Mouth. He was running by in the distance. Then he went into the water where he crossed to the other side. It was the lake. "There goes Mice Mouth," they said. Then they began to call him, and he came running. "Hey, it's certainly good to see you. You must be wandering around." Then he said, "Yes. Why, I usually just wander around. I don't live in your village anymore. You people don't like me." That is what he was saying. "Now we've brought this to you. It's what you like to eat." He was overjoyed when he ate it. Then he gulped a mouthful. Then they grabbed him and tickled him. Then he choked. He fell over unconscious. Then they killed him. Then they went on, and after they had traveled around, they started back for home. "Now let's go see where we killed Mice Mouth. Let's see if he's there yet." Then they arrived there at the lake that he had gone into, but he was not lying there. The mice must have come. They must have picked him up. They must have hidden him. Then the party came back home. After they returned, they said, "We killed Mice Mouth, who has been bothering us. We left his body. He was lying there. He was dead. But when we came back, we said, let's go see him. And then he wasn't lying there. We don't know what happened. We don't know where he went. He had died. They had killed Mice Mouth. His actions, the things that he did were not good. Then the people hated him.